Okay guys, I am back making another video, and this video is specifically on, let me pull up my notepad so I can remember, the importance of information intake, explain the law of what can and can't happen. I don't edit these videos because I'm not that good at editing, and I feel like it's a lot less genuine if I edit them because there's like cuts in between everything. So if I fuck up the way that I talk or say a lot, whatever, I can't control that. I can't cut those out, so it's just how I talk. So, I'm going to be demonstrating my points through explaining by entertaining hypothetical situations with lack of information, slash when you have all information, and then in between. And I'm going to be entertaining all of these into my hypotheticals at different points to portray my points, because this is the only way to really do it. Okay, so let's start off. Let's say that we are on blue side this game, which is here. That's what these little dots are. And this is all the information that we have. Let me make this bigger somehow. I don't know how, but so this is all the information that we have already. So if we just play it like this, we see that their jungler is starting red buff. Your jungler is video gets better, by the way. Don't leave. Um, let's say your blue side. So your jungler is starting red buff, the enemy jungler is starting red buff. And let's say that you're the ADC here. Okay, so it's pretty hard to entertain a hypothetical if you don't have any champions here, as you can see, right? Well, a lot of the time, people in game will be pressured by things that can't happen due to the champions in the game. So, let's entertain a hypothetical on not the junglers are not really in this equation, by the way. This is just mid lane and bot lane. Okay, let's say you haven't recalled yet on bottom, and it's 5 minutes and 40 seconds. Okay, so you haven't recalled yet. It's 5 minutes and 40 seconds. You guys are pushed under turret like this. Okay, so they're pushing you in, and they have a huge wave built up. The enemy mid laner goes missing. Your mid laner has to recall. Are you feeling under pressure that you could possibly get dove in this situation by their mid laner, or that you may get roamed on? Well, it's very possible that you could be feeling this, and it's very possible that it could be true. But it's also just as possible that it isn't true, and the feeling is it can't happen. So let's just plug in one champion to this equation, okay? Let's say that the enemy mid laner is playing something awful to really dive on, like AP Shyvana mid, okay? So the enemy mid laner goes missing, yours recalls, and you're getting pushed in, so immediately you think that you're going to be getting dove. You press tab and you see that the enemy Shyvana is level 5, and she's not visible. She's in the fog of war. Then the feeling in which that you feel that you're going to get dove goes away because it can no longer happen. Level 5 Shyvana cannot dive you, and she's not in lane anymore. So you can make the deduction that she probably just recalled. Let's change it up. Let's say that this is a Zed, okay, on mid, and he left vision after coming back to lane with 2 longswords or maybe a Dirk. So he's back level 6 mid. We don't have vision of him at the moment because he's just shoved the wave. So we have no vision of him at this moment. We're a low bottom. They're shoving us in. These champions don't matter down here. Zed has a Dirk and he goes missing. Are you scared of getting dove? Can it happen? The probable odds of this happening now are decently high because it can happen. That's the difference between the one and the past, like the other hypothetical. This one actually can happen, but we must think about the other things going on the map, okay? So that's when we're going to bring in some other things. So this is one that can happen. Zed could dive bottom here with a 6 and Dirk. So let's just say that your mid laner is still here, okay? This is working pretty good. Now junglers, let's say your jungler is on the same side of the map as you. So your jungler would be, let's just say he's on Krugs. In this scenario, are you still feeling pressure that you're going to get dove? Well, we have a little bit of backup here, so it's not too bad. If it happens, then we might be able to turn the play around. Not too pressured. Let's say their jungler is playing a very strong dive jungler and he's bottom. Let's say it's It's a what's a strong dive jungler that I can think off the top of my head? Let's just say like it's Graves or something. It's Graves. In Graves, you just saw him on a ward in River around this area. Now you're starting to feel more afraid that you could get dove because you saw Graves on a ward like maybe around this area, like in this spot. So there's a lot of people around bottom. So it's Graves here, but we haven't named your jungler yet. Haven't named the champions in bot lane, and then this is a Zed. Your mid laner is a Xerath. Starts to get really fucking weird, doesn't it? When you add in all these things. But it's still, now it's becoming something that like this could be a situation that could really go on here. But let's take some other things into account. We haven't really thought about what's going on top lane either, because that can change the odds too. What if it's Camille versus Riven matchup, and then uh Zed is here in lane, so like we don't see him in lane. I mean, this point doesn't matter. I just haven't moved the dot yet. I don't know why I said that. Camille versus Riven up here, and they're both pretty low, and there's one thing that changes in this hypothetical. So all this shit is set up bottom. Xerath is in base. But when Zed leaves Fog of War, he moves up. We see him move up off the minions after he pushes it. Now, are we afraid of being dove? No, because it can no longer happen. Zed's roaming top. So then in this scenario, you would ping top lane that they're going to get ganked by the Zed. Situation's diffused, and there's no problem. Let's say you didn't see the Zed move upwards from Fog of War. I mean, into the Fog of War from the minion vision. So you didn't see him go like this up towards the top lane. You would feel under pressure for about 30 to 40 seconds, as would everyone else that's out of sync with what's going on. Pressure that you don't need to be feeling. And if you were maybe more aware, you could have created a good play for yourself down here, maybe baiting a fight to happen in a 3v3 and you guys might win it because your jungler's ahead. All this other shit plays into account here. But the main thing is, you're not in danger because we see Zed move up. So, shouldn't feel pressured there for no reason. So that's just one example that I have. But if you just move these as dots, it's very hard to feel pressured about anything really because they're just dots. You don't know what champ they're playing. You don't know any other information. But the more information that you add into your explanations of things and hypotheticals that you put together, the game starts to make a lot more sense. And a lot of people though they think about the game, like as other champs in the game, right? Because they're only really focused on either their lane or they're focused on jungle versus jungle matchup, which they should be focused on the laners a lot of the time too. But they'll disregard a lot of other things, like what the other champions can do on their team and the enemy team. So they'll be in a spot where these bot laners are feeling pressure when they shouldn't be. They're fine. And you could know that with only seeing the Zed move upwards. I just made it look like they were actually going to get dope when they weren't. Because Zed made the worst play instead of going bottom there, at least. But yeah. So if you don't add champions to these, and then I say uh, something like green dot goes missing after pink dot dies, okay? Pink dot dies to a gank from green dot. So he's back to base. Oh, well, he's going to go back soon to base. There he is, okay. So this green dot moves up through here after the gank, so he's out. So we see that he moves upwards to top side, so green dot can't come bot. But mid lane green dot could come bottom and gank us because we are, I hate this program sometimes, we are very pushed up into the enemy team. So green dot could come bottom and gank us. But then if we think about, let's say, what if this green dot had 1/4 mana and 1/4 health before they left vision? Green dot can't come bot. We can play as aggressive as we want to play because there's no threat of green dot coming bottom. And that's what you would be able to do if you were paying enough attention to mid lane to see that this green dot went back to base. So you could play it very smart rather than letting yourself die or be late to reacting to green dot coming down to kill you. Let's say green dot's full HP and full mana. Should you still be afraid green dot could come bottom? Well, there's a lot more things that you would have to take into account as well, such as vision, such as where he left the lane to go to, such as if he hasn't recalled yet, such as what his items are right now, such as his level. And we're not taking the champion into account here, though, by the way, yet. So green dot, when you figure out all these things and you see him just leave the lane and he hasn't bought anything yet, maybe it's 6 minutes in and then maybe he has to go back and buy. He can't go bottom. Anyway, I'm really driving this point home, I know, but uh, by taking in all the correct information, all the information the game gives you, it's pretty much impossible to get everything. But the most of the time, if you can pay attention to very important things going on, you can really start to get a feel of the game. You can start reading it like a book rather than looking at it like it's like a framed picture. You could start reading it like a book. So I'm really good at doing these wicked.gg maps. So I got another one. I gotta drink some Gatorade though. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So let's just actually play a game out for the first two clears. Maybe we'll do. I can't make waves or anything happen on the map, so you're gonna have to bear with me here. But we have Karthus versus Graves in the jungle, Yuumi, Ezreal versus Alistar and Kai'Sa, mid lane Quirky versus Zir, top lane Jarvan versus Aatrox. I picked these comps mostly by random, and also trying to prove my points too. So here, if we see that Karthus starts bottom, then we know that Karthus will end his clear top side. If we see that Graves starts bottom, we know Graves will end his clear top side. But that's way too easy, so let's mix it up a little bit. Let's say Karthus starts red, so he ends his clear down here. Let's say Graves starts his clear here, so he ends his clear here. Most of the time this will happen. Now, you're playing Jarvan, you're pushed up to this point, you're Karthus' bot side. Do you have to play passive? Do you have to concede the wave? Well, not necessarily, because the way that an Aatrox or Graves would end up initiating a gank on you, it would be pretty hard for them to be able to actually stick on you and kill you because of your escape ability that you have. So the only thing you would have to change is how smart you are with using your E's and your Q's. If you use your E's and your Q's too aggressively, you might get Graves ganked. But let's say you have a ward in this spot of the river where my mouse is, you can see it, I hope, right here. You have a ward at this point, so you would see when he enters river, and you would see if he comes through here or tries to wrap around. So then this is when you would be able to really get some good use out of your ward to play differently as well. But you could, so if you don't have the ward, then you have to be very cautious about using your abilities. If you do have the ward, you don't have to be so cautious. You could still play as aggressively as you wanted to, but then with the same thought of, I mean, with the thought as well of Graves has the ability to gank you at that point, so then you'd be more apt to respond faster to the play. So you don't have to be so scared as Jarvan here. So Graves knows that he can't really gank this lane as it is if he's a good player. So he might just do something like a full clear reset, which I don't really see Graves do that often, but let's just do it here. So he resets here. So Graves, he has to walk back to Krugs. He has no choice. Karthus has to walk back here. He has no choice. Nothing else has happened yet. And then at this stage of the game, if you're the Jarvan and you're still playing super aggressive, do you still have to fear getting ganked by Graves? No, not at all. He can no longer be there on that side of the map anymore. He can't. You can still play as aggressively as you want into the Aatrox. You have no reason to play passive unless you want to. As the bot lane here, if you guys are playing super far up here like this, and you know Graves is going to be back on this side of the map, do you have to play super passive? Are you in danger of getting ganked? Well, not necessarily, because Ezreal and Yuumi have not that much CC and they can't really impact that much to the gank to where Graves could actually pull it off that easily. You'd have to really fuck it up. So all you would have to do is not play passive, but ward the tri-brush, and then have in your mind that Graves could possibly gank bottom. And that's all you need to think about here. Nothing too crazy, just he could possibly gank bottom. So let's play like he could possibly be here. And he could only be here for around 30 seconds, I would say, before he has to go to the other side of the map, and that's saying he's not going to solo dragon or something like that. So the only thing that you would change is maybe you would now start combo in. Maybe you guys could still kind of pressure them, but you would now start combo in as recklessly. You would wait for a better timing and until the lane's in a better state that you could do that without getting ganked. As this lane, you don't really need to play too passive or aggressive anyway. It's just a farm lane. It's going to be really hard for anything to happen here with Ezreal. I mean, with Graves and Karthus. So no worries. And let's say let's say Graves keeps clearing here. So Graves full clears, Karthus full clears, and this Jarvan still hasn't recalled yet, and he's still playing in this guy's face. And this guy somehow has been surviving this whole lane. He had to TP back. This Jarvan is fucking crazy. Jarvan hasn't even recalled yet. He's just going nuts. He's playing really good, I guess. And at this point, Graves sees that he could gank this lane because Jarvan, let's say that he had flashed earlier. Now the lane can be gankable. So he waits until Jarvan lets his guard down and goes for an aggressive trade because maybe he's not thinking too much about where Graves is. He makes the mistake, and then now he's going to pay for it, and he's going to die. So then this gank will actually work. And let's say for the bot lane, it's like this. Alistar still has flash combo, and they're playing aggressively. Karthus could gank bottom here if he sees that it's fit for him to do it because of what's going on here as well. As soon as he sees Graves top, he knows that he's free to gank bottom, and there's nothing stopping him. And so that's a possibility, something that could happen. And so at this point, the game starts getting a little bit weird when you add all these other factors into it. And so that's like for what happens when you think about it with junglers. Junglers, you must think. With junglers, you must be thinking about their gank paths as champions, what their champions do, and what their champions do to you. And then what is going on the map as well. And you can do that pretty quickly if you get good at it. So we're going to move on. This game. I use the Xerath example here. Okay, let's say that it's 6 minutes in. Kiana went missing at 6 minutes in. Okay, that's all you know is Kiana went missing at 6 minutes in. Are you afraid of getting ganked bot lane? Well, I'd have to move these guys around first for you to be afraid. So let's say that you're playing. Let's say you're red side this game. So let's mix it up. You're playing red side and you're like this. Somehow you're in their face is this lane. So you're up here, and Kiana went missing. That's all you know. Are you afraid of being ganked bot lane? It could happen. But let's go down the line of things that you have to know first before you can really find out if it's going to happen or not. Press tab. What are Kiana's items? Okay, so she just recalled for the first time. So we know that she has to have recalled now because she has a long sword at 6 minutes. So she must have pushed the wave in and recalled. And you can find that out even by not having a good like train of information into you. You can find that out just by pressing tab that she has to have recalled then. Or you can not has to have, but she could have. That's something that you need to know. Now, let's say that you can get even more information in which that you saw that Kiana had no mana when she left Fog of War and she had about 25% HP. Now you know that she had to have recalled. So now it's not that she may have, it's that she had to have recalled. Okay. So now that we know that, we know she could come bottom now. She could gank bottom before going back mid because that's what Kiana does a lot of the time. The character likes to roam. So she could gank bottom, and she would have to come through a path kind of like this, where she would either go through Tribrush or she'd jump over the wall, and she would go here because she surely isn't going to go all the way around like that if she's going to gank bottom. She might even like come through lane if you guys start trading or something. So in this point, you guys should start playing a little bit passive, thinking Kiana could recall and roam here. It's a possibility of what could happen. And the timing that you have to play passive isn't actually that long because Kiana can't wait around forever for something to happen. She's gonna have to go back mid because there's a static factor in League with the waves. The waves always come. The waves always come at the same time. So she's going to have to get back mid if you guys play passive long enough for nothing to happen. If you don't want it to happen. So she's going to go back mid eventually. If you guys play passive, nothing is going to happen, and then boom, you guys are home free bottom. And then even if you were not going to get ganked by the Kiana, and she wasn't going to do it. Playing under the pressure as if that you were going to get ganked is beneficial. To be in, unless you're losing something huge, it's beneficial to be in the habit of doing that because then you lower the amount of bad things that can happen to you in a smart way rather than always thinking that you're under pressure. Now let's say that you know she's going to gank bottom, and your Kha'Zix is waiting in this bush because he knows that she's going to gank bottom, and Nunu just ganked top or something, so he showed there. So in this scenario, you should start playing like continue playing aggressor, play like how you are, but maybe just kite back to the Kha'Zix, and then in this scenario, boom, she ganks, whatever, they get owned. Nice, you guys made the play happen. Now Xerath gets to crash a wave into mid turret that she loses, and she has to go back mid afterwards with fucking a sense of failure that she's failed, and you guys get a big advantage out of it. So those are some things to think about, and it's very important to also think how much would this change things if she left vision, if she comes back mid lane, right, and you guys are still playing super aggressive. Kha'Zix is not in the equation, and she leaves vision by walking upwards. You guys can't get ganked anymore. She's done the ultimate mistake of a mid laner. She showed where the fuck she was going. So you guys are home free. That means you can play how aggressive as you want. It's pretty similar to when the jungler shows on a ward on the other side of the map. Like let's say you don't know where the enemy jungler is and that's what you're afraid of in this scenario, okay? Not the Kiana. So if Nunu just shows on a ward over here, you guys are safe. You guys can do whatever you want. And then you can find the information from him showing on the ward, such as his CS, such as his items, such as his jungle pathing, and then deduct a lot of things from it. You could see that maybe he's going to recall and come bottom in 30 seconds. So you got to be ready for that. But he surely can't be there right now. So then you could maybe push the wave in and then recall and then dodge the Nunu gank just by not being in the lane or something like that. Some crazy shit like that. It opens up a lot more options when you're taking in all the information. But if you're missing just one bit of key information, it'll throw you all the way off if you're trying to make the best decisions you can. And that's when you're going to end up fucking up, is when you are missing bits of information. So, um, I went over the when someone has low amount of mana and stuff like that. Also, when someone has a lot of gold on the map, you can also figure out that they might recall soon or something like that to come to your side of the map for objectives as well. So, let's say that you're playing top lane, Dragon is dead. It's Nunu versus Kha'Zix, Dragon is dead. You're playing top lane, every other lane is pretty much in the middle, just doing whatever. Now, the priority for each jungler is no longer playing to the dragon side of the map if that's, I mean, that's Nunu's win condition, right, to play to dragon. And then after that, Nunu, since he's kind of like an objective tank control jungler, he wants to go for this. Next, the Rift Herald, not the Baron. So the next play that's going to happen will most likely be on the top side of the map. So then you guys must change the way you're playing because this is where the action's going to start coming. At least until Dragon's like a minute from spawning or a minute and 30 from spawning, something crazy might happen up here. So you guys need to be playing differently up here as well, and that's the information that you need to be taking in. Because if not, then you're going to be the one caught off guard and getting fucked. So let's see what else I missed. Jungle pathing went over that. Items, I went over that. Uh, Spells. Okay, this is a very interesting one. It's pretty easy to explain. I think I have the Alistar one. Okay, let's change Alistar. Can I change it? Nice. Alistar. Go Thresh. Okay, so we have Thresh now. We just swapped him out in the middle of the game. So we got Thresh. Now, let's change the Ezreal to a more immobile ADC. Let's change him to Aphelios. And let's change Yumi to a useless character in bot lanes. Make it Sona. Okay, so in this scenario, a lot of the strategy that a big strategy that Thresh players do is they will flash on you, pretty much like level 2 or level 1 even flash play. Because then if it makes you burn your flash, now you are flashless against the Thresh. So if you're in a situation where Thresh has flash and you also have flash, you should try to keep your distance more. But in a scenario where you're forced to burn your flash as Aphelios because the Thresh flash is on top of you, now you're in a disadvantageous situation because Thresh can land a hook on you pretty much just if he's a better player than you or if you can't dodge it. and you're in a more dangerous position to be able to get engaged on. So then the whole lane state will change and you must play differently or else you're going to get fucked. And let's say Thresh flashes on you and then nothing happens because of it. You don't have to burn your flash. He just flash misses his flay. Now you can play super aggressive in the lane, knowing that Thresh has no flash, because that's the only way he's going to get onto you unless you're playing it bad. So you can do whatever you want now. Just don't get hooked. He can't get in range to get onto you. So those are how summoner spells can change the game. And I think that's pretty much everything that I explained. Spells, when it comes down to, let's say there is a Morgana here instead of Sona. There's a Morgana here, and you're playing Thresh, and you hit level 2, you might be thinking, well, she might have Black Shield, I don't want to Flash Flame. But level 1, you could see that Morgana used her Q on you and missed. And then when she hit level 2, she tried to use her Q and use her W right after, but then the Q missed, so she just W'd the creeps. So at this point, Morgana can't have her Black Shield because she just showed what 2 abilities that she has as she's level 2. So then at this point, you can make an aggressive play of flashing in because she can't Black Shield and her. So that would be a pretty good play for you to make if you could find it. And the same thing can be applied to abilities that are down and on cooldown. Morgana's Black Shield is on cooldown, and you know the cooldown of it. Then within that window of the cooldown is when you can make your play. And then that's the opportunity that you must take from taking in the information. If you're not taking that information, you won't ever be able to make that play. So those are some things too. And I think that's about it. I think I got most of what I wanted to say out here. So I need to close it off with basically, this just explains how information intake explains how you can be pressured when you shouldn't be pressured if you're not taking in the correct information. And if you're taking in most of the correct information that you can, then you will not feel pressured and you can make better plays. So then with that, you have this law of what can and can't happen. So when something absolutely cannot happen, like when the mid laner moves upwards on vision, they can't gank bottom because they're not on that side of the map. That can't happen. No need to be pressured about it. Let's say the mid laner moves down. Then you have to take every other factor into consideration to know if they're actually going to come bottom and gank you, or if they're going to make a play on you, or what's going to happen here. And then through what can happen because he can go bottom, you can maybe even find out that it can't. But initially it can happen by him moving downwards. By him moving upwards, it cannot. So then you must come to at least 90% of the time. I think it's probably good. I mean, you can't do this 100% of the time and be correct about it because it's like almost impossible. But you just need to play under what can't happen is the most important thing. So you need to know what cannot happen. And then what can happen, you can see like him moving down on the map, and you could play like a little bit more passive without taking any other factors into consideration, and that would be fine as well. But just knowing that he can't come bottom when he leaves vision is the most important part, because then in a lot of the situations he won't, and then you can still play aggressive. But if you feel like every time he leaves vision he's going to come bottom, you're not able to play the game correctly. You're going to fail. You're going to lose lane. You're going to play a lot worse. So what can't happen? Good. It's important to know that. What can happen, also you must investigate quickly and find out if it's actually going to happen or not, but you shouldn't have to. Because if you're taking in the correct information, like a fucking, like a, I don't know the word for it, like a fucking, the thing you put your groceries on at the store when it comes, it goes to the baggage thing. If you're taking in your information like that, then it's really easy because you don't even have to think about it. You see it, you know it. And that's the goal. You shouldn't have to investigate each situation. It should happen naturally in your brain. And so that's what you should be doing. So you should be taking in as much information as you can around the map to figure these things out, because if you don't, you're going to be playing a lot worse. And anyway, that's the whole video. So thanks for watching. I appreciate everyone that came, and I hope that you stuck around to the end. I've repeated myself a lot, but that was just to get the point across. It's a very simple point, but I'm a visual learner, and so I like talking about these hypothetical situations to get the point across like I would be talking to myself pretty much. So If you want to watch one of the future videos I make, then be sure to subscribe. If not, then whatever. Uh, Peace out.